anticipated zoning text amendment update.
That's all right. I'm going to sit up here. I don't really like talking with my back to everybody.
Sure.
So, this mic's on, right? Hello? Yeah, it works. All right, cool. So, we have, first of all, my name is Mike Hoffman. I am a consultant to the city, a city planner. I've been working for Morris for 25 plus years or so, helping with reviewing development proposals, writing zoning codes, developing comprehensive plans. We did a downtown plan a number of years ago, and we were asked to take a look at the city's zoning regarding data centers and battery storage, two hot topics these days in the planning world. So we've been doing that and working through the process. Julie, if you want to hit the next slide, it talks about why we're doing this, right? Data centers are multiplying across the country. You guys all know that. And we're learning more and more about them and their potential impacts on communities as we go. We want to make sure that our code is properly addressing those things. Right now, data centers are allowed as a permitted use in our manufacturing districts. And we do require a very detailed site plan review of each and every phase of those projects, which will include the ability to control a lot of things. But we also realize that residents have significant concerns about data centers, and so we want to modify that code to address those concerns. We've heard concerns about water usage, electrical rate issues, environmental impacts. Battery storage systems have their own issues. We are very familiar with what can go wrong with battery storage in Morris, with the problems and other things that we had a number of years ago. So I want to make sure that we get that right. There's certainly a need for battery storage and to capture and preserve that energy and make it available, but we want to make sure that's done in a safe and appropriate fashion. There's also been changes to state legislation. There's evolving technology. There's a lot of moving parts with this. There's certainly economic development benefits of having these things. We want to make sure that we maintain the community's quality of life, and we're doing this in a responsible way to regulate these types of uses. And so that's kind of the task that we were charged with and why we've gotten into this. In terms of our approach to this, we have been focusing on reviewing what other communities are doing, right? We can learn from others significantly by doing these things. So, for example, Aurora has had a data center in town for a number of years. It has some significant problems with it. They've learned from that and modified their code significantly in the last couple of years. Theirs was placed very close to residential properties, and there were significant issues regarding noise, vibrations, and a number of things that were detrimental. So we want to make sure that we're addressing those things, as well as the environmental impacts that we talked about earlier in terms of energy usage, water usage, all those kind of things. Manuka, we know there's a data center under construction there. So their codes, we looked at Aurora, we looked at Yorkville, who's had a lot of them. And then in terms of energy systems, we looked at a couple of examples in the area as well. Some want to look at Grundy County's codes and what they're working on in terms of addressing battery storage, because they've been actively involved in that. So took a look at what's around, looked at some of the best case literature that's out there on these materials. I'm a member of the American Planning Association. Just about every day, or at least every week, there's another article about data centers and battery storage that are in the publication. So we're trying to stay abreast of that and trying to kind of integrate best practices here in Morris in terms of regulating these types of development. So we have drafted a preliminary initial draft of some modifications to address data centers and battery storage. We want to make sure that those kind of clarify what we expect from developers, what mechanisms are going to be put in place to be transparent in terms of how these projects are reviewed and providing public information on these projects. We want to certainly enhance public safety and welfare. That's kind of the basis of zoning, really, is to protect public health, safety, and welfare. So these regulations and additions to the code would work towards that. And certainly want to seek input from the community when we're developing these things. And we honestly want input from the developers too. They have worked in areas across the country, so I want to make sure that we're understanding things we may or may not do what they request. But I think the hearing from all sides is my point. Really, we want to get input from all sides of the equation to develop what makes most sense for Morris. Once we are comfortable with the draft, we then have a public hearing on that for the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then ultimately the City Council would adopt some new regulations. So that's what we've been up to in this process. If you want to go to the next slide, kind of give you an update on where we are in that process. As I mentioned, we do have a draft prepared. City staff and consultants right now are taking a look at that draft. We want to be comfortable with it before we move ahead with conducting a public hearing on that. Once we are comfortable with the draft, we'll certainly post it to the city's website. We'll conduct a public hearing on it before the Planning and Zoning Commission. I would guess that's probably October. We haven't finalized the draft, so I can't tell you exactly when it would be, but October would be my best guess. They meet on the 4th Wednesday of the month at 5 p.m. It's possible September. It's also possible it gets pushed back to November. It sounds like we've got a number of things on the agenda for September already. So I think October is most likely at this point. At that public hearing, we would certainly present the draft to the community, take public testimony, consider that input. Ultimately, then the Planning and Zoning Commission would make a recommendation on those amendments, perhaps modify them based upon the proposal and the public input, and then make a recommendation to City Council. The City Council would then adopt those modifications to the code once they've integrated and understood all the public comments and issues that have been raised through the process. So next slide. In terms of things that are in the draft regulations, probably the big single change, changing it from a permitted use to a conditional use. For practical purposes, what that means is that for any data center that would go in, we would have to have a public hearing, perhaps a series of public hearings, all likelihood, on the location, on whether it makes sense in that location, and take into everything into consideration that would be appropriate for approving any types of use. We also updated the definition of a data center to kind of clarify the things that would typically be a part of a data center, addressing power and some other things. The biggest section of it, though, talks about requirements for submission to propose a data center. We've asked for detailed reports on water usage, detailed reports on sanitary sewer and wastewater discharge. We would require vibration monitoring if it's anywhere near homes. It has detailed requirements for landscape buffering and screening, detailed requirements for noise studies and mitigation, emergency operation plans, provisions for chillers, generators, and in general, honestly, more rigid requirements than really any other use in the code right now. But we have been listening to the community. We do think that the concerns are legitimate. We want to make sure that we're addressing them. Still allowing them as a possibility, but looking very specifically at what's proposed, where it's located, the impact on surrounding properties, and whether it makes sense for more in a particular location. So that's what's in the draft right now. And in terms of battery storage regulations, similar things really. Next slide. There we go. We do distinguish between on-site facilities and off-site facilities. And that would simply be if I have battery storage to supplement my operation of a business or something, that's one thing, or even a home for that matter, Tesla chargers and all that kind of stuff, right? Those are one thing. Off-site facilities are another, where you might have a big solar grid and a separate battery storage facility or something like that. In either case, for the most part, if it's a larger system, over 600 kilowatts, we would require a detailed site plan review and specific sign-off by the Forest Fire Protection Ambulance District. We want to make sure that these things are going to be safe and put provisions in there to require that in all cases. We detailed out specific submission requirements for battery storage facilities to make sure that they're meeting the national standards. We've added some details in terms of how far they need to be set back from property, make sure that they're properly secured, screened, and have provisions for decommissioning, insurance, and financial assurance to make sure that if they put something out there and they're going to take it down, that it gets taken down in the right way and it's a clean site that can be reused for something else. So that's kind of where we are in the process of developing these codes. As I said, it's a work in progress. Working with the details with the city's engineer and the city staff, and the legal team, and make sure that we're comfortable with something. We'll go to public hearing and move forward with that. But
Okay, Mike, appreciate the explanation and delineation of everything you're going through, I guess. Appreciate it.
Hey, Mike, being the expert you are, is it data or data? Is that first one? I really need to know.
Can we ask a
That's
question?
a great question, and I do not know the answer to that one, Ray. Take it.
Never mind.
Okay. Tract, visual open house, Julie, do you want to talk on that?
And just as a point of clarity, thank you, Mike. This is a pretty substantial zoning text amendment, and so I appreciate you taking the time to kind of walk us through what it's looking at. The conditional permitted use would apply to any projects going forward. So this, the current project, which is next in your packet, that is allowed by right at the industrial location. So just wanted to point that out. Tract, the company that purchased the land for a data center, is hosting 2 virtual open houses. One is tonight, one is Thursday. They're hosting that in partnership with the Grundy County Chamber of Commerce. And I think there's about 30 people registered for tonight, as far as I had heard. So the chamber is going to be handling that with Tract. They're taking questions ahead of time from folks so that they can be prepared to answer those and just offer some background that is on their project, what their plans are, and how they're marketing that site to a potential end user. So I want to make sure that this group is aware of that, as we always do, and then